Hi, lovely souls. I'm Jessi Lee Ross of Lone Folk Studio, and today I'm here to talk about what is hands down one of my favorite topics in neuroacoustic therapy, and that is binaural beats. What are they, and how can they help you? So, binaural beats first grabbed my attention about 10 years ago, and the reason they gripped my fascination so intensely was because they, binaural beats, do not exist. They are what is known as an aural illusion. The same way many of us are familiar with optical illusions. You know, you see those pictures that trick your eye into seeing something that's not actually there, things like that. And for some reason, and I think many people don't really think about the fact that we can have illusions in the other senses as well, such as aural illusions. So binaural beats in themselves are a magic act. And the way that you set the stage to experience a binaural beat is by playing, you have to listen through headphones because they are comprised of playing one tone through one ear and then another tone that is slightly different. I believe it's about an 18% difference that needs to be occurring between the frequencies of those two notes, playing through the other ear. And because those notes are so similar but they're not the same note, it confuses the brain. And the brain is trying to figure out, what are these notes that I'm hearing? And basically what happens is, so there's the sine wave of the one note coming in through the left ear, and then the sine wave of the other note coming through the right ear. And those notes, those sine waves, they intersect in certain areas. And the brain hears that intersection and it assigns it basically like a drum beat. And that is the binaural beat. So it's kind of like that wah, 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 that you can hear happening with certain instruments. It's similar to that. So yeah, it's super fascinating. It's basically the binaural beat exists only within the mind of the listener and nowhere else. And within neuroacoustic therapy, we can work with certain tones to try to get specific binaural beats that through scientific research and experimentation, we've come to figure out have very specific psychological and physiological effects. So the way that that works is, say you started out with a note that was 440 hertz and you played that through the left ear. And then through the right ear, you play 445 hertz. So the difference between those hertz is 5 hertz. And that would be the 5 hertz of the binaural beat that your brain is hearing. So within the scientific research, they've been able to break it down into 5 main brainwave states that can be accessed through binaural beats. They've actually figured out way more than that. I think at this point there's at least 21 brainwave states, but there's 5 main ones. And those main ones are delta, theta, alpha, beta, and gamma. And each one relates to a certain frequency range. So depending on the notes that you begin with to construct your binaural beats, that correlates to what type of binaural beat that you are creating. So delta would be the lowest binaural beat, and that correlates to deep, dreamless sleep. I'll just go through the list right now so you can see the range of these 5 main states that are being used. Delta is deep, dreamless sleep. Theta, deep meditation or creativity. Alpha, wakeful relaxation. Beta, active concentration. Gamma, high-level mental activity. So it's really cool that they've been able to figure out these different psychological and physiological states that happen when we listen to these aural illusions of binaural beats. And because that happens when we listen to these beats, we can use these binaural beats for what's called brainwave entrainment, which I briefly talked about in one of my other videos, which is basically that the brain is a giant muscle, just like any other muscle in the body. We can work it out. We can do certain exercises that help to tone, that help us to have more flexibility, that just basically grow our strength in certain areas. And the brain is the same way. You can listen to these different tones to access different strengths, to access different meditative states, or just states that you wish to have more of in your active life. So say you were having trouble sleeping at night, you can listen to delta binaural beats more often, and then by brainwave entrainment, your brain muscle gets stronger and is able to more recognize that state of being, of having deep dreamless sleep, and therefore you end up having better nights of sleep. And eventually the hope is that your brain muscle gets so strong that you don't actually even need to listen to the binaural beats as much, because your brain becomes more familiar with accessing that state of being, the ability to just have deep dreamless sleep. And the same goes with alpha for wakeful relaxation. Just listening to it more often helps you be in that state more often. And one of my favorite binaural beats is theta, because as a creator, it's very helpful to be able to get into a flow state more often. And theta relates to deep meditation and the state of creativity. So as an artist, it's really helpful to be able to listen to a certain track that has theta binaural beats within it, and that way I can better access my creative state more often throughout the day. So it's super fascinating, this brainwave entrainment. And the other amazing thing that we can do with binaural beats is called hemispheric synchronization, which I also mentioned in one of my other videos, which is hemispheric synchronization is when the two hemispheres of your brain are in communication with each other. And that, oddly enough, doesn't happen that often naturally. It is what's happening when we have epiphanies, when we are in our flow state, when just you have realizations and things just make a lot of sense. So binaural beats help our hemispheres to communicate with one another, because like I said, with the one tone coming through the left ear and then a different tone coming through the right ear, that's causing the hemispheres to talk to each other like, hey man, what are you hearing? I'm hearing this. Are you hearing that? Because, your ear correlates to different hemispheres. Actually, your left ear correlates with your right hemisphere. Your right ear correlates with your left hemisphere. So it's an opportunity for them to communicate with one another, to just try and figure out what is it that we're hearing. And what results is, like I said, that optical illusion that doesn't actually exist. And that's super fascinating to me as well, because it provides us, by listening through binaural beats, it provides us with an opportunity to put ourselves in hemispheric synchronization more often. So again, as a creator, that's amazing. And as just a person in general, that's amazing, because it's an opportunity for us to put ourselves in flow state, to put ourselves in a state where we can be met with answers to our deepest questions about ourselves, about our paths, about just these questions that we seek for in life, and to have realizations and epiphanies. And I think it's just a really beautiful gift that we've been able to figure out this incredible thing of an aural illusion, a magic act through the use of tones, that just kind of tricks your brain and helps your brain to better work as one and put ourselves into these deep meditative states, or these active concentration states. It helps us get deeper quicker and just have more of that state throughout our lives, so that we can show up better in this reality. So I think binaural beats are just absolutely fascinating, and there are so many tracks out there now. They're either pure tone binaural beats, or you can find a bunch of instrumental tracks that have binaural beats underlaid. So it's kind of like that subliminal message where you get these benefits through listening to an instrumental track. And yeah, when I first found out about binaural beats, I was super fascinated because the only tracks that I was seeing out there were tracks using the pure tone, using like an electronically created tone that's very specific. And I just kind of was fascinated with the thought of, well, what if we can create binaural beats with the voice? Is that possible? If you record yourself singing one note and then an 18% difference note into the other ear, and you pan it in your recordings, that one note comes out the left ear and then the other comes out the right ear, would that create binaural beats as well? And so that actually ended up being, almost 10 years ago now, that ended up being my BFA thesis project, was experimentations with creating vocal binaural beats. And yeah, it was super fascinating. And through research, I was able to figure out that you can create binaural beats for sure using the voice. The difficulty with it, and the reason that most tracks are created with electronic tones, is because obviously it's very difficult to sing precisely a frequency and sustain it for long enough, and then very precisely sing the other frequency so that you can be specific with what type of binaural beat you're creating, you know, theta, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, which one are you doing? What should the effect be? And so that's difficult, but also super fun to play around with. And the other thing is, like I mentioned also in one of my other videos, that the human voice isn't actually one tone. The human voice is a chord. So there's never just one tone coming out at once. There's multiple tones. And again, that just makes it difficult to really solidify what exact binaural beat that you are creating. But yeah, it's super fascinating, and that's been part of my life's work and my creative endeavors as far as neuroacoustic therapy goes. And yeah, it's been really fascinating, and I love spreading the word about binaural beats. The other thing I just wanted to mention about binaural beats, that was one of my questions as well, was, is that the same, are binaural beats the same thing that's happening when we hear in instruments, when we hear that like wah 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 that I was explaining? Many instruments do that, and actually that is crystal singing bowls, or singing bowls in general. They actually produce a type of binaural beat just based on the shape of the bowl. So the bowl is wider at the top of the bowl than it is at the base of the bowl. It sort of tapers. So that physical construction of the bowl is creating one tone at the top and then another tone within 18% difference at the bottom. So as you play them, they're actually creating a live beat. You can hear that like wah 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 when you play bowls like that. So I was curious, is that a binaural beat? And it does have similarities of effects, but it's not technically a binaural beat. It is what's called a monophonic binaural beat. And the main difference is, when you're actively live listening to an instrument that's creating a beat like that, what you are hearing is actually the air molecules colliding with each other within those two different notes. Those waves that are similar but slightly different, they are colliding and they're hitting the air molecules. So what you're hearing is actually whoa, 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 whoa of the air molecules. And the fascinating difference between that monophonic binaural beat and the true binaural beats that I'm talking about, with those that you have to listen to through headphones, the main difference is that, so one is air molecules colliding in real life, and the other is that your brain is making it up. Your brain is interpreting the synchronization, so it doesn't actually exist. It's not anything physically happening except for the confusion of your brain. So I think that's really fascinating. Clearly, I'm still on my journey of learning so much about binaural beats. It's endless in my eyes. So yeah, mostly I just want to spread the word and tell you guys to go find some of these tracks that are out there and listen to some, and maybe work on some brainwave entrainment. Allow yourself some opportunities for hemispheric synchronization. I mean, who doesn't want to have an epiphany about what's going on in the world and who are we and all these big questions? And these are just really beautiful tools that we can add into our daily rituals. I actually just recently started listening to them every morning for my morning ritual, which I'm planning to talk about in a later video. And it's been really transformative for my mornings. So yeah, go on out there and explore it. Another side note is, when you do listen to these, they are meant to be listened through headphones, as I said, and also because they take up so much brainwave activity, they should not be listened to while you are driving, while you're operating any heavy machinery, anything like that that requires your active concentration. They should be part of, a simple ritual that you're doing where you allow yourself some time to just listen. And yeah, I hope you guys go out there and scope them out and add some into your day and experience the marvelous benefits of binaural beats. And if you'd like to take a listen to the tracks that I had created for my BFA senior thesis with these vocal binaural beats experimentations, I have, it's a 23-minute track called Euphony, and you can access that by jessiliross.bandcamp.com, and I'll leave the link below. But yeah, I hope you guys have fun exploring, and of course, if you'd like to take a look at some of my current sound offerings, please check out my website at lonefolks.com. And yeah, thank you for being here.